Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Wing It Wednesday. We're so excited. And as you can see, we have a bunch of people here with us, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you guys. But thank you guys for joining. Whoever's watching right now, please, if you can just comment below that you can hear us okay and that we are actually on the Golden Globe Facebook page, please let us know. And feel free to chime in with all the comments and questions. We will be interacting with you as well. So let's get to it. The first question is, can you guys tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do for work? So Danica, do you mind starting first?
Absolutely. My name is Danica De Souza. I am in Calgary, Alberta in Canada. And I have to say Canada because there's quite the global connection here with everyone.
Very diverse today.
Right.
Yeah.
I am a mortgage professional. I've been a mortgage broker for almost 13 years now. I am a busy mother of 4. And just shy of 18 years ago, I was actually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I have a whole bunch of different things that really keep me focused on being positive, and I like to just manifest positivity because I think it's very fluid. It really inspires others, and I can talk about pretty much anything.
That's awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining
us.
Glenn, what about yourself?
Well, I retired May of 2018 after 37 years in education in Illinois.
Wow.
I taught special education the first 8 years, and then the last 29 years, I was a high school counselor. And now what I do 2 things now. And I'll mention a third thing that wasn't even you didn't even know this about me, since it's mental health.
Yeah.
But what I do now is I work with parents of teenagers on improving their relationship with their teenagers, because that's something I did at my high school with tremendous success. And I also wrote a book on called I Love My Teenagers, but I Sure Don't Like Them, or How Parents Could Change Their Teenagers' Behavior.
Wow.
And the way you do that is you have to change how you parent. So you could go on YouTube. I did a television interview and just write in Glenn Krause, author, and you can see this 4-minute television interview.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you mind, like, after this, if you can comment below on the in the video so that people can reference to it?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And so then the other thing I do is I work with school administrators to help them create happier and healthier workplace environments between the teachers and the administrators, between both. So I've sort of become an expert on doing that using the collaborative process. And then the last thing I want to throw in, which I did not mention on my bio, since it is mental health. I was in a very serious car accident when I was 18 years old. So I do suffer from depression. Now, most people think depressed and depression are the same thing. They're 2 completely different things. But I have had 4 major clinical bouts of depression, 4 different times, each one lasting 6 months.
Wow.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining us tonight. Cassie, what about you?
Hi, so I'm Cassie. I'm a life coach. I work specifically around life balance and trying to help women find joy and fulfillment generally. They're overwhelmed and feeling a little disempowered. So we try and get them back to feeling empowered and reconnect with themselves and prioritize a little bit of themselves over others. I'm also a mummy. I've got twin girls, and I'm originally from the UK, and we moved to Calgary in January of this year. So just in time for COVID to hit was when we made our big move. So it's been an adventure so far.
Amazing. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Dawood, can you introduce yourself as well?
Right. Hi, everyone. So I have my morning cup of tea now to stay awake and meet all of you. But
Early.
it's wonderful. I'm a patent lawyer. I was working in Dubai, and one fine day I go to my manager, Mark Bunnell, who was from British Airways, and I say that, Mark, I'm not enjoying my work. I want to do something different.
Mhm.
And he takes me to the Starbucks, the nearest one that we had, and this is almost like 15 years back. And he says, there's something called work-life balance, Dawood. And if your work is in the center, then you're not doing the right thing. That is when I decided to quit my job, the corporate career, move back to India, and start my education work. It's been a
Wow.
wonderful journey since then, traveling all across. In fact, some of my best lessons were in Moscow. Not the nicest place to be in, but a great learning place to be in. And right now, I work with a bunch of children where we have an e-school, and I'm a mindset coach. I do a lot of reading and doing training, and especially quizzes for young children.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited that you guys are all joining, and I love how everyone
Thank you
has
so
such
much.
a diverse background. So in one word, how would you guys describe the feeling you get when you think about this pandemic and how it's impacted your life? If you can keep it to one word. Glenn,
I
you
would
want
I would
say,
say I would say
yeah,
anxious.
anxious? Yeah.
I would say hopeful.
Hopeful. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I would say it's just a new normal. And one of the qualities being successful in life on an emotional level is one's ability to adapt to changes.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
just a new
Mm-hmm.
normal.
Mm-hmm.
And if a person has a compromised immune system, you got to be doubly
Careful.
aware and safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right here.
I
That's me.
like I like the word, Glenn, you said adopt is the word, adapting to different situations. I like think as an educator, that's how I see it. It's wonderful.
Yeah. For sure.
For me, I think it's been challenging, but I don't think the challenge has always been negative throughout all of this. So yeah, just challenging, but I think there's been positive aspects of that challenge too.
Yeah, I think it's made us kind of question, like just think back as to how we are living our life, how it was before, right? And just going down to the basics of focusing on your family, your just simplifying your life almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think before, when it first hit, it was almost like a wake-up call of things just needed to slow down.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because I find myself going in like a roller coaster of different emotions. And there's certain times where I feel calm and rested, and I don't have to commute to work, and everything's like our health is okay and whatnot. But I think lately I've been feeling this overwhelming feeling. And I think partly is my kids are going to school. There's so much unknowns. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if they're going to get sick if they go to school. There's a lot happening at work. So I feel like there's this sense of overwhelm, but also I'm feeling lately I've been feeling a little stir crazy because I've been working from home and I'm an extrovert since March. And at first I loved it because it was a new normal and it was change and I love change. And then now it's like, okay, it's not a new normal. This
I didn't
feels
know
too
you were an
normal.
extrovert. I didn't know you were an extrovert. I guess I learned that about you.
Yes, through and through. you,
I feel you,
you
myself
can't
as
shut
well.
me up.
Yeah. Give me a topic and I'll talk about it for
Yeah.
hours.
You know, I would like to share something. There's a lot, and I don't know how everybody's situation is here, but there are so many people with the coronavirus that don't have money coming in. They're being
Mhm.
evicted. They lose their jobs and their savings, they have none left. So this is really, really, really serious stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all have our own reality. So, and I could just speak in my reality. I have a great pension, so I don't have to worry about money.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm very
Added stress
humble,
right
I'm
there.
very humble and gracious about
Mhm.
that. But like I said, everybody's reality is different, and we're doing this, and some people just aren't having any money coming in.
Totally.
And I think that massively impacts people's view on things, doesn't it? So depending on the challenges that have been brought up for you within this situation, depending on how you are going to react to it, because, you know, if money isn't something you need to worry about, that's one of the biggest stresses for a lot of people taken away. But, you know, if it is one of your biggest stresses, you know, it then has a knock-on effect on everything else. Because you know, it's so limiting, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
In fact, if I want to add what Danica said, something about the word anxious, it's so true because I deal in education with children and parents, and one thing that anxiety set in terms of what will we do. They're not used to, parents aren't used to having children hang around every day at home. Spouses are not used to having each other at home, and you know, this truly led to a lot of. You know, I went and I told my wife that you married me. What worse can happen to you? So you know, we will be together in the last 6 months. But one very important thing on a serious note is I always tell the parents or the people I you know I coach. I say, if you do not change or come out better than the one you entered in the pandemic, I think you have learned nothing from the pandemic. In the last 6 to 8 months, we must evolve. Is what I think COVID has taught us.
I think there's been more abuse in homes now, because if parents are struggling, not as parents, but as husband and wife, and they have to stay home more, and people are losing their jobs, that's a catalyst for more abuse in the household.
Right.
It's a fact that there's been a lot more abuse happening.
Yeah.
Domestic abuse is up. I can't remember what the percentage is, but even if it's up 0.5%, that's too much.
Right. There's been a lot of divorces too happening, and you know, it's because, like, we talk about this all the time with emotional intelligence, is we study how people react emotionally during distressing times, right? People show up differently, and it can be really hard if one spouse is feeling a certain way when they're distressed versus another, and it's like the emotions are high and it's the unknown that's really frightening.
People's triggers are different though as well, aren't they? You know, so you'll know from, you know, doing your line of work with emotional intelligence, what might cause somebody to react one way due to what they've experienced in their past isn't necessarily going to cause that to somebody else. And when you're in those confines all of the time, you have to really try and understand why that person is reacting the way that they are, to be able to then work around those situations and come out of them. Because if you can't, it's a very, very hard journey otherwise.
I would say also, because we're human beings, that means we're all dysfunctional.
Yeah,
Only robots might be functional, and sometimes they get dysfunctional if they're wired wrong. But human beings are fallible. We make mistakes, so we're all dysfunctional. So my take on it is, what separates emotionally healthy people from people who aren't emotionally healthy is how we handle the bumps and the bruises and the hills and the valleys and the obstacles in life. Do we have the tools and techniques within us to handle those things? And the more tools and techniques we have, the better we could adapt.
right.
And the more tools we have in our emotional toolbox, because most people in this world should be declaring emotional bankruptcy.
Yeah, your comment really made me think of being resilient and resiliency during this time. And I think linking back to Cassie's, when you said confinement, it made me think of, yeah, everyone's in their own little bubble, whether it's just within their home or extended to a couple families. And it's very different than the world that we used to live in. And when you're in that bubble, sometimes it's so hard to see a different perspective in things because you're in it, and it's like it's brewing. And without that resiliency and without being able to see different perceptions when there's a lot of stress, it's really easy to cause marriages to break or cause friendships to crack, and because you're in that confinement. And I think that is such a reality in where we are today.
I'm waiting for somebody to say something, but you know, most human beings have a very small comfort zone. They don't like going outside the comfort zone, and one of the reasons is because they fear failure, so they just stay in their comfort zone. And with this coronavirus, to emotionally survive it, one really does need to sort of reinvent themselves and get out of their comfort zone. So I think there's a lot of people that are having a very difficult time with this coronavirus and being in the house.
It is
They're willing to
difficult.
get out of their comfort zone.
Right. Please, Cassie.
No, go on, Dawood, go for it.
Okay. No, it's a deep perspective. Perhaps what I wanted to share is there was a beautiful book by Thomas Friedman, World is Flat. And while it was from a very corporate perspective, today, if you look at the COVID, and you know, if I look at someone like Cassie and I say, oh wow, she's in UK, she definitely has a better off than someone in Sri Lanka or someone in India. But ultimately, what has happened is we all are banking on our reservoir of a mental strength. There is a new word that Angela Duckworth said about grit. It does not matter where you are. It does not matter how much money you save. What matters is what strength you have here in the mental space.
Yeah.
We all, this pandemic has shown how characters develop.
For sure.
And trust me, the stronger the character, you are more, less prone to being mentally damaged in the last few months that we've had. So it's all about grit and bringing out that character in us.
Another real good trait of a person for emotional intelligence is having grit.
Mhm.
It's difficult to change the patterns though, isn't it? You know, we as human beings are so used to everything being predictable to a certain, to a certain account. You know, we do the jobs, we do the schools, we do all of these things on a daily basis. You know, we are, I'm not saying rightly or wrongly, but we are prone to looking very far ahead. But actually, that is, in these times, is particularly difficult. And, you know, to be mindful and to be present is really quite important with how you have that bounce back and that resilience, because looking too far ahead at the moment is only actually going to maybe put you into that fight or flight state. It's not actually going to keep you grounded, keep you present and help you in day-to-day life. So it really is about removing the expectation and really just coping on a day-to-day basis with what you've got to cope with, and, you know, learning what your coping mechanisms are.
Yeah, I love that. I think what's kind of helped shift me a little bit is just accepting that this could be our new normal. And by knowing that, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? Like, you can't control it, just accept it and just adjust, right? I think that's kind of how I look at it, rather than being like, when is it going to be over? Like, just trying to predict when it'll be gone, like just trying to adjust yourself and
lose the expectation of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the only person we have control over is ourselves.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's it.
And how we deal with things.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a statistic that really hit home for me in terms of health. And if we think of health, 30% of health comes from physical health. That's exercising, going for walks, taking care of what we put in our bodies. And 70% is mental health, which I don't think we talk enough about. If you go on social media, if you go on, there's so much about the physical health. And yes, that is important. But I think that the 70% of the mental health is what's showing today in terms of COVID, of who's able to have the resiliency to get through it faster, healthier, better, and a better mental state on the other side, and who's able to handle all this stress and change and all that stuff. And it really comes from that mental health.
I would agree with you 100%.
There's a union between health that health, the physical and the mental. There's a union between them though, isn't there? You know, yes, it might only be 30% physical, but what you do fuel yourself with physically is going to have an impact on your mental state. Equally, you know, what you're watching, what you're absorbing is going to have, you know, an impact on you, and your mental state is also going to impact on your physical state, the way you hold stress in your body, those sorts of things. So it has to be a union of the two together.
Yeah, I definitely think Danica's living proof of it, right? Like 18 years ago, you were diagnosed with MS, and you did mention in your intro that you work on your mindset and positivity, and you don't let that affect you, right? So I think you're living proof of that.
Mm-hmm.
Side note really quick about that mental health thing is I actually saw my neurologist the other day, and she said that, and this is not the first time that any doctor has said this, they don't know how I'm doing so well, because the average person with MS has maybe 6, 7 lesions on their brain or their spine, but I have 19 on my brain, and I shouldn't be as good as I am to any degree. But my neurologist just shook her head saying, I don't know how you do it. I'm going through a separation, divorce situation right now as well. And it's everything that's going on. As you know, I'm an extrovert, and Zoom calls with like family members and teammates and stuff helps a little bit, but not as much as a good hug and a coffee and whatnot. But we do try our best. And like I said, I just manifest positivity, because the day that I was given the diagnosis, my dad was crying, and I said, well, it's not like I'm dying. And then he looks at me and he's like, but you've almost been given a life sentence, because there's no cure, there's nothing. But 18 years goes by, and I'm technically now in permanent remission, because there was a medicine that's not even for MS that they found might be a good idea. And I was on it in 2018 and 2019, and here I am.
Wow.
So
this is amazing.
Yeah.
Danica, by the way, you're welcome for a coffee here in India. Yes.
Yes, please. I'll get my chai. I'll get my chai.
I think your entire story is so amazing. The power of grit we're talking about right here, Glenn and Leona, you got a guest was exceptional. I'm really admiring what she said, her journey. And she said something very interesting in what she just mentioned now, that there is no medicine and they tried on it. Isn't this COVID all about that? You know, there is no medicine. People are trying things about it, but at the end of the day, it's your resilience that you overcame it. I think that's a message loud and clear to everyone who's listening. The best journeys are the journeys within. You grow from within, and nothing can destroy you from outside. It's amazing, Danica. Hats off to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I really admire you and applaud you for that, because I think a lot of it is attitude.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So
and there's a couple of people, there's a Facebook group called Warriors of MS. And they're like, oh, this medication didn't work and there's no hope. And I was like, you're not dead yet. Like, it didn't work. So just try something else. You know, they're coming out with new things all the time. And I left the hospital because there was a point where my heart almost stopped because of a medication I was on. And my mom's like, well, it's scary because you almost died. And I said, Mom, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So as I strut out of the hospital, where I like literally 4 hours before almost died, but I didn't. I kept on walking away, strutting along.
Incredible.
Are you still walking? Can you walk regularly?
You couldn't tell.
Would never have known.
By exams, by my balance, you couldn't tell at all that I have MS. There's nothing that shows it.
Unbelievable. I am thrilled for you.
Thank you so much.
Incredible.
Really. So I want to share a couple things about, now one of the things, comedy is really tragedy. Comedy comes from tragedy. So opportunities can come from bad things too. And I've learned a lot about myself from my depression. So I was in 4 depressions. The accident happened when I was 18 years old. And my first depression, I actually checked myself into the hospital. I had no idea what was happening. And so each depression, I had 4 of them, was 6 months long. And I've been to hell and back 4 times. So everybody gets depressed. Depressed is a mood, a sad mood that lasts 1 or 2 days. Depression is a medical condition caused by genetics, an accident or situation, or 2 of the 3 or all 3. One of the things I've learned from my depression is mind and body are one. You cannot separate the two. So I learned that I have to really be in touch with my mind and my body, and I am. So if something's wrong and I give it about a week, I'm going to go to the doctor. If something's happening for about a week that shouldn't, I'm going to go to the doctor. But we know a lot of men are machismo and they think it's weak to go to the doctor. Well, I like being proactive.
Or ask for directions, right, Glenn? I'm just adding that.
Right. Yeah. Or read the instruction booklet.
Yeah.
There
But
you
I
are.
like being proactive and not reactive.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. No, please, Glenn. I'm raising 3 daughters, so I understand now. I learned much more from my daughters about machoism than I learned when I grew up.
well, we think we know everything when we grow up, and we don't know anything. But that's a whole other story.
Experience
So-
teaches you that you don't really know anything.
Right. That's a confession from Glenn. You know, you highlight that, Jen and Lena.
Yeah.
That
Now
we
the
knew
other
everything
thing,
when we grew up.
the other thing I want to mention about me is I have kidney problems. So I had a virus attack my kidney when now I just want you to know I'm 70 years old. I know I look 30. I just look real good.
Oh, you look 16. I'm sorry.
You know, that's no, but I am 70. I was born in 1950. And when I was 52 years old, I found out a virus attacked my kidney. So I had to see a kidney doctor, which is called a nephrologist. 3 years later, when I was 55, 2005, I'm sorry. In 2005, he said, Glenn, when you're 70, there'll be a 50-50 chance you'll be on dialysis. Well, I see him every year. And the last time I saw him, he said, Glenn, you take care of yourself so well that now there's a 50-50 chance you'll be on dialysis when you're 80.
Wow.
So what do I do to take care of myself? I'm going to share with you what I do.
You sit in a gaming chair.
I do 24/7, and now I got hemorrhoids, but that's a whole nother story too.
I'm sure we don't need to hear that one.
So I have to stay away from potassium, sodium, and protein. That is not good for my kidneys. It doesn't mean I can't have it. I just have to monitor it. I also have to watch my weight, because for those people out there who don't know, and most people don't, kidneys never get better. They just get worse. So you have to watch your weight. So here I am at 70. I'm the same waist as I was when I was 18.
Wow.
Same waist, a 32-inch waist.
I wish I could say the same.
I've had 2 children, you've got no chance.
Okay, 4 kids later, and I don't have that same situation.
And I'm only 5 pounds more. So I
Wow.
weighed 160 when I was 18, my senior year of high school, and now I weigh 165. So that, and I exercise. So that I can only control what I could control and watch what I eat, and that helps the kidneys.
You know,
And
the biggest thing I'm jealous of Glenn is he can use his whole high school genes, right? He can just wear them.
No, it's about knowing who you are, knowing you can only control yourself, and just doing what you can do and being proactive, not reactive.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I love that.
So
That's
what's
my final
everyone's major lesson been that you've learned throughout all of this?
Pardon me?
What's the major lesson that you've learned throughout all of COVID?
Well, I'm going to share that with you. First of all, I used to be very cocky and arrogant and conceited. Now I'm humble and gracious, but I'm very confident in who I am professionally and personally, but some people interpret that as cocky and arrogant. But I believe the people who interpret that as cocky and arrogant are people who are very insecure themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to share with you what I learned. So I have a master's degree in counseling. So I'm very introspective anyways. But I have 2 years, 60 hours, 2 years beyond my master's in this school of psychology called rational emotive behavior therapy, founded by Albert Ellis in the 1950s. And I met the guy. I couldn't believe it. The guy's a character. He died about 15 years ago. But I found it so interesting. It's cognitive behavior therapy. And I live my life that way. And I could give you the executive summary if you want. If you don't want, I won't.
Go ahead.
Okay. The executive summary of REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy, is an individual decides how they are going to behave and react. They don't allow other people to decide for them.
This is powerful. In fact, just adding on to what Glenn said in terms of the COVID, one of the most powerful tool I found was the power of routines. When the COVID started and when we were in the lockdowns, you said, okay, 1 month and 2 months, and we kept postponing our flight tickets, which I had my daughters, my wife, we all had a lovely vacation plan, and we said, okay, another couple of months. Then I realized it's the journey that's important. It's not the destination. I remember the word Danica used in the beginning, anxious. We all were, but then you started accepting that this is a part of your new normal. This is a part of your life. And one of the most powerful thing I learned in this entire 6 to 7 months that we've been living through this new normal is routines help you grow.
Yeah.
Trust me,
Definitely agree with the routine thing. Yeah.
the bedtime routine I have with my daughters where we read books together. Oh, I bonded so well with them now. Perhaps I realized I did not know my youngest one as much as I would have, now I've grown. I remember a small incident where I woke them up at 3 o'clock in the morning just to see some kind of a night sky. They all grumbled. They all hated me for that. But today, yes, when we reflect after a few months and they say, Dad, this was the best thing we had. The
Oh, that's so
excitement.
brave of you to wake up your kids in the middle of the night. Like, sleep, just sleep.
Imagine waking 4 girls up, my wife and my 3 daughters up.
Yes.
But trust me, those moments is
Moments
what will make
matter.
our lives. Yes,
Yes.
it's not a one trip you make to Hawaii or New Zealand that they remember. It's those small routines, the walks that I
Yes.
have, the reading time. We finished. So as a family, sorry, I'm taking a little time, but as a family, we started doing this one book, one page from a book as a family together. My parents sitting together. In the last 3 months, we finished 3 books. It's a book called Who Would Cry When You Die. Don't go by the title. It's not a sad book by Robin Sharma. A very positive book, but the lessons were so beautiful. Then there
Love
is
it.
another book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and we read one chapter and we reflect all of us together. It's a
Oh,
small
that's so
exercise,
lovely.
15 minutes, but now my kids look forward to those reading sessions
Oh,
together.
I love
Have
that.
any of you read that book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff?
No.
It's a very short book, an easy read.
I'm going to write that down.
And one of the things you'll realize, the older you get, the things that bothered you or upset you when you were in your 20s or 30s aren't any big deal anymore. And the reality is 98% of stuff in life is small stuff. It's the 2% you got to worry about.
So,
But when you're younger, maybe 50% is small stuff.
So what's interesting with that comment there, with EQ, we look at patterns, and generally speaking, men have more anger than females do. Generally, women have more shame than men do. And as we age, there's a pattern where anxiety goes down the older we get, and that alludes back to what you were saying don't sweat the small stuff. And when you're younger, in your 20s, the things I used to worry about, oh my gosh, I don't even care about anymore. Now in my 30s, there's a different set of worries. And then and so anxiety does go down with age, and we've seen that with through EQ patterns.
Now let's talk about the relationship between the anger of the men and the shame of the women. I bet you there's a correlation that the women feel shame because of the anger the men put on the women.
Because I think as a woman too, we want to be almost vigilantes. We want to make sure, it's the maternal instinct in us. We want to make sure that everyone else is okay first.
Yes.
I know that if I was on an airplane, I would struggle putting the mask on myself first. So I'm like, no, I got this. Here, everybody, put it on you. And all of a sudden I die. Because I'm so concerned about everybody else.
Yeah, I'm going to say something you women will love. That's why every country in this earth should have a woman ruling it through the men. Because they're
like Australia that has the woman that is
because men in general,
New Zealand, right?
Men in general are about power and machismo and anger and all. Women are collaborators. They want to keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
Now, not every woman.
Statistics,
but that's a generalization to say women are better leaders than men. There's no question about it.
Thank you for that.
No, really, it's true.
No, I second that. And in fact, two of the happiest countries in the world and in the leading educational companies are Finland and New Zealand. Both are led by women. So there you are.
Amazing.
I don't know about UK, Cassie. I don't know so much about UK though. But I hope it's a happy country, but not led by women.
Well, I'm not there at the moment, so.
Yes, you're in Calgary, right?
It's very unhappy because I'm not there, but yeah.
That's a legit statement.
No, it's a very difficult place to be. I mean, obviously my family are still there, apart from my husband and my children, and I'm thankful we're here and not there. You know, it's a much better strategy, I think, here, and people are coping better and are, I think they've dealt with things a lot better here than they probably have there.
Perhaps because Canada has, a president of the prime minister who is loved by women all over the world. That also makes it a happy place.
It's apparently their ovaries. Their ovaries need to calm down because his hair's not that good and he really doesn't make the smartest statements. So let's try to raise our women. Let's raise our girls to be better than the current leaders within North America anyways.
Oh, I second that motion.
There you go.
Man. We don't want to get into that at all here, do we?
No.
That
kind of topic.
Let's not go there. That's another day, another topic.
That's a whole other subject, isn't it?
And I avoid being from America. I avoid it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's all negative energy.
Yeah.
I'm not into negative energy. Seriously,
yeah.
I am not into negative energy in any way, shape, or form. So we know people lots of times fall into two categories. The glass is half full or it's half empty. Would anybody disagree with that?
I agree.
Nope. I definitely agree.
Okay, I'm going to share you what my glass is. My glass is half full, and then I put ice in it, and the water overfills. That's my glass.
I love it. I think going back to the mental health topic and some of the topics that we talked about today, that there is, like, on top of COVID, like there's so much going on in terms of the election in the US. There's the inclusion diversity stuff with Black Lives Matter. There's a lot of things happening in the market conditions here in Calgary. I'm sure a lot of businesses worldwide are feeling impacts to businesses, financial, all these things, and it's heavy. It feels heavy right now. And I think that takes a huge toll on mental health, not just COVID itself, but everything else going on. And it feels like everything's almost like simmering. It feels like it's going to boil over at one point or something. And so for me, I think one thing that I've really learned is being mindful of what things I take in, whether it's social media or the news. There's sometimes I just can't handle it. And I know it's going to impact my mood. And so I just try to avoid it and try to keep just looking at positive things. And yeah, it could be naive sometimes. I don't know the COVID numbers someday. Like a lot of times I don't know the COVID numbers in our city and all that stuff, but it's because I can only handle so much, and I'm really just protecting what I take in.
I'd like to suggest for those of you in this panel who work with people, a good baseline question would be, you know, a person only has 100% energy. That's it, 100%. So a good question to ask your clients could be, what percent of your energy is negative?
Yeah.
So if they say 50% is negative in their life, I would be willing to bet that person is physically and emotionally exhausted at the end of every night before they go to bed.
Oh yeah. And
So,
it shows,
yeah.
it shows in their
So the
EQ
goal-
profile too.
Yeah. So the goal is to bring up the positive energy, which automatically brings down the negative. And then the next question is, how the heck do you do that?
Yeah. And it really shows there's like, it's such an eye opener for people that have had their EQ. I was just with a client last week and her joy level was at a 17% and her anxiety was at a 32. I'm like, you feel anxiety 32% of the time where your joy is 17. That is an issue where you feel anxiety almost double the amount of times that you feel joy. And then you look at all the other distressings like anger, shame, and it's like she lives in this distressing feeling state and her joy and love are so depleted. And it totally hit home where her eyes just watered, and that was her reality, and where she's felt like she was drowning for so long, but no one really realized it until, well, for me, I saw her EQ and I said, like, do you feel depleted, and at times do you feel depressed? And it was 100% yes. And no one really knew she was going through that because we try to keep that strong face, like everything's fine, everything's okay, don't worry about me, I'm okay. And then when you have that moment when you realize, wow, I'm feeling anxious double the times I feel joy, that is a true problem of, and then it goes like, how do you fill your joy bucket? And I think that's where we should focus on from a mental health, is like, how can people focus on themselves and fill that joy bucket with constraints that they're in?
I think the difficulty as well with anxiety is it becomes people's normal. So they hold the feeling of anxiety for so long in their body that they forget what it's like to not feel that anxiety in their gut or in their head. That is just their normal. And only when maybe there's a light bulb moment or a physical, moment or a mental moment that can pop up and actually address that situation with them, they just become so accustomed to it, and it really needs some deep-rooted moving around then.
Yeah, the people,
Agreed.
We get so used to what we do, and that what we do seems to be all we know.
Yeah.
So I like to talk about three things that are, I think Jen was talking about the anxiety level and the emotional intelligence.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
Oh, that was, okay. Anyways, so I think I'd like to talk about three things that can really exasperate anxiety. And the first one is the worst emotion in the dictionary. It's called guilt.
That mom guilt, it's real.
Mom guilt is so real.
Well, let me share with you about guilt. Guilt is a short-term fix that causes a long-term problem for the people you're putting the guilt on, or the people who are putting the guilt on you.
Yeah.
I think women put it a lot on themselves because of their situation, because, not wanting to go too much into this masculine, feminine, but, you want to be the feminine, the mother, the everything, but then there's also the patriarchy, and you might be the sole breadwinner within your family. So then you have that responsibility. So the guilt becomes doubled because you feel ineffective in both of those roles.
Well, it's all right to make mistakes, though. People think it's all right to make, that's what human beings. So it's not the mistake; it's what you learn from your mistake. That's the key.
Because every mistake has that learning opportunity from it. Like, what did you learn from this? And when, even if my kids say it or a friend says it, and I'm like, it's not that it was a bad experience, but what did you learn? How did you grow from that experience?
And I'm sure some of you people have dealt with people who are perfectionists. And that is a
all the girls.
no, that is a built-in ulcer and nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Because perfection, we are imperfect.
Yeah. Perfection doesn't exist.
So guilt, getting back to guilt, that's the worst emotion in the English language. And one of the things I've learned about me is once I gave up guilt, I was emotionally home free. It doesn't mean I don't care. I want to say that, but I don't feel guilty about things, except maybe the people who I'm closest with. But another thing is that people do, there's some people, and I'm sure you've noticed this, there's some people who feel they don't deserve to have good.
How are you just doing that?
Sorry, guys.
Okay, there's some people who believe they don't deserve to have good things happen to them.
Yeah.
So when something good can happen to them, when some good things can happen to them, they sabotage themselves.
Yeah.
And that convinces them that they are lousy. They do that purposely because they're
there's a word for that actually. Sorry, there's a word for that. It's called acrophobia. It's like you have gone higher in the pedestal, yet you want to remain grounded as if you haven't grown yet. So people don't want to accept that we all grow every time. At every moment, every opportunity, every challenge, you grow. But people stop accepting it. And that's exactly what Glenn, people have stopped accepting that they have grown and they've become better. This is one aspect. Just adding on to very important something that Leena mentioned about, the mask that we wear, the kind of today now, the COVID has taught us, the face mask is on and you put your mask on when you go out. They're real masks that people hide behind. That's the kind of guilt that people have. When you have too much of expectations from yourself and you don't meet the expectations, you mentioned, Danica, the mom's guilt. You want to be an overachiever, and then you don't want to settle down for being average, and we think we are some kind of Captain Marvel or Wonder Woman or you sort of anger and Hulk perhaps, and then you start feeling this simmering guilt and this lost hope within, and it comes out. Sometimes it comes out as
what's wrong with average?
I think average is beautiful.
No, if that's all a person wants and they're happy with average, whatever that is. Now, I just want to talk about the third thing here. So guilt, self-sabotage, and the third thing is this term that I've sort of coined. I didn't patent it or copyright it, but I think this particularly goes talking about gender with women with children. Mothers want to keep everybody happy. That's a fair generalization. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. It's important. So as a mother, I'm going to make a comparison or an analogy to watering a plant. Mothers give, and then you run dry. Sometimes you have to water yourself. So in other words, you have to be selectively selfish. That's the term. And do something for yourself to make you feel good, which gets the juices back. And then you could give back to those around you who you care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
So I just wanted to ask more of a positive question. So how can you guys just kind of tell us what you've done to kind of, help yourself get through this time? Like, what's a hobby you picked up or a life skill that you've learned, or what's something that you do to bring your mood up during this time?
I think what's helped me is usual mindset tools, you know, so things like journaling, meditation, making sure I physically move, getting out in fresh air when I can, still connecting with people. You know, Zoom has just become our best friend, I think, hasn't it, in so many ways. But also I've tried to look at everything that's happened with gratitude, really, because I never would have got this time with my children.
Yeah.
You know, I never would have got this, you know, my husband would never have been with us normally, and we had that. We had the opportunity to explore new things and, you know, learn more things about ourselves and one another. And I am eternally grateful for that, because I, you know, other than maternity leave, I never had that time with my children, and probably never would do again. So yeah, I'm grateful, but I've had to be selectively selfish also, you know, and implement my morning routine and be really quite strict about that, because if I don't do it, it really does impact on how I'm then able to give to the others, you know, in my circle throughout the rest of the day. And actually working with other women has really helped me, because as a giver myself, you know, I try and put all of these tools in place and help other women, but I'm guilty of letting it go sometimes too. But working with them really helps me sort of fill myself back up and keep myself back on track to be able to give to them.
I know one thing that's always kind of, I've turned to it on numerous occasions to bring a little bit of positivity and some passion into my life is song and music, because singing is the only thing that MS hasn't taken away from me at certain points in my life. You know, I've had the numb spots, I've been blind, different situations, but it's never ever stopped me from singing. And so I will forever be grateful for song and the ability to sing, whether it's, you know, something I sang in church or Alicia Keys or something along those lines. Mariah Carey. There's a part, you guys all know the song Hero by Mariah Carey. And there's a part where she says, "It's a long road when you face the world alone." You don't face the world alone. Then you have your squad. You have people like you guys who are here to talk about mental health and make it a norm, that it's okay to not be okay, Demi Lovato, right? It's okay to not be okay.
Your voice, my gosh, almost gave me tears. I'm like, oh, that's so good.
American.
Yeah, we've got artists out here, we've got talent out here. So much of it, abundance, absolutely. In fact, one of the things I spoke about routine, and one of the most amazing things that happened was I started a series called Minding the Mindset. A fun on the word mindset. I said, all right, so I could, you know, interviews. I started with my own small network of principals and educators I know for the last few years, and started interviewing them. It's a small series. I said, why limit it to educators alone? I started reaching out to personalities on TV, on celebrities, and people were very cordial. People were like, okay, I'm at home, I have doing nothing. I can give you 20 minutes, I can speak to you. And this truly helped me. It's a beautiful series that I created. Very small edited videos of 10 minutes each. I said, I don't want to bore people with a long conversation. I'm not, so started asking them about things that otherwise would not ask them. I said, what's the Netflix movie that you're watching? Or who's your favorite Avenger? You know, getting the best side of us, it was amazing. Beautifully, there is one word that I think Casey used in terms of gratitude and opportunity. Trust me, those are two real words out there. You could either sit back and say, okay, the world's not moving, I'm going to sulk and I'm going to, you know, to complain and cry, or else let me reach out to places I've never reached out to. So Minding the Mindset became international in the second version. I started reaching out to someone in Mexico I've never met, someone in Nigeria, in Spain, in Turkey, and it was so amazing that people across the world are so similar. I mean, we all think alike, we all have dreams alike, and yet we never knew each other. So I think this was the best thing that happened in the COVID. And look, now I've got an artist in Danica, and I'm going to call her to sing to my kids now. You know, there's a whole bunch of kids who will listen to her.
I'm notorious for singing Disney tunes.
Oh,
that's wonderful. So the Frozen
I am
one,
a Disney princess at heart. Right here.
So you're
Disney princess.
So you're Anna or Elsa?
I'm a little bit Anna, but I'm a little bit more Ariel. A little bit Jasmine.
That's wonderful. Oh, there
Yeah.
she is.
Oh, I love it.
I am the Olaf, the snowman, right? So you can rely on me now.
Warm hugs all round.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we're reaching near the end of the hour, so I just wanted to kind of close off a bit. But I would love for you guys after to comment in the video on our Facebook group so that people know where to find you guys, because I'm sure there'll be people that would want to connect with you guys after hearing your stories and all of your knowledge. So please comment after. But yeah, in closing, I guess, like what do you guys have any final closing remarks about how to stay positive during COVID?
Well, yeah, I think it's important to get out of your comfort zone. Be a lifelong learner. That's important. And during the COVID, it depends on your attitude. This could be an opportunity to learn new things. I reinvented myself. I want to share this with you, and you'll get a kick out of this. So as a high school counselor, we had a secretary. My last year, 2017, 2018, I finally learned how to do a PowerPoint. Okay, you could laugh at me. That's all right. I'm made out of Teflon, so that's all right. But now that I do these I do these online live workshops. That's what I do. So I've had to become much more tech savvy. And I have a 33-year-old young man who works with me, and he's like my tech guru. And but I've had to reinvent myself because when I retired, I didn't have any hobbies. I knew that about me. It's really important to know what your strengths are as a person and what your weaknesses are. And I knew when I retired, I had to do something. Otherwise, I'd be sitting on the couch eating Hostess cupcakes and Twinkies and bonbons, and then really ruining my kidneys. So, I reinvented myself at 7, and I don't even have to do this, but I want to do it because I'm passionate about these workshops.
Awesome.
And I'm
I
really
love that. I love that comment about reinventing yourself. I think for myself, ever since having kids, I felt like I kind of lost myself. I think the only thing that kept me going was vacation. I had a vacation planned almost like every month, every other month, and I traveled for work. And I love traveling, and I will always love traveling. But with COVID, I couldn't really travel anymore. And I think recently I've been just daydreaming about what new hobby should I pick up? And there's things like, oh, maybe I should try hip hop dancing, or maybe I should try like learning the guitar, or like being a kid again. And it's like, sometimes it feels like as an adult, you can't do that. But I think that's the whole reinventing thing, is that you always keep learning, always keep growing, and always try new things. And that's how you're going to learn the things that you like and don't like. But for a while, I felt like it was so heavy with just work and parenting, and then taking a trip.
May I add one thing about being a kid again? I have a bachelor in special education. I have a master's in counseling. I have this third degree that I'm most proud of, but people don't know that about me. I got this online and the school wasn't accredited. It's a POF, Paul Office Frank. So then you're supposed to ask, what's a POF, right? Professor of Fun. And that keeps me young.
Yeah.
So I embrace the kid within me. And, girls grow up to be women and boys grow up to be boys. Just the toys get bigger.
The toys get bigger. Cassie, what about you?
I think for me, yes, it's really important to stay positive, and it's really important to use gratitude as part of that. But I also think, it's okay to feel the shadow. So if you do have a dark day, then that's absolutely fine, but just don't let the dark day become the dark week or the dark month. Just acknowledge it, see what it's bringing up for you, and try and come out of the other side of it as quickly as you can. And, any tools or anything that you can use to help you do that quicker. And the bounce back gets quicker every time, but just yeah, keep being grateful and positive, but allow it every now and again.
I love that. Great reminder.
Great. I think in conclusion, the only thing I would say is get a gaming chair. You'll feel young again, right? Isn't it, Glenn? So there we are. But yes, there are three ways we learn, and I keep saying that to all the students I meet. One is traveling, which we can't do in the COVID time. The next one is reading, and I think the best thing people can do is open up a book and just read something. If you aren't an avid reader, start by 1 page or 2 page. You don't become fat by eating one burger. You won't become very intellectual by reading 1 page, but over a period of time, you'll broaden your horizon. And finally, it's about interacting with people. I've learned so much from meeting all of you. The kind of words, the kind of experiences you share. It's been really enriching. So yes, go ahead, meet more people. Zoom it out.
Love it.
Yeah, zoom around the world.
Zoom it out.
Well, that's great. Thank you guys so much for joining and for taking the time out of your personal life and your
Thank you.
and thank you so much, you guys.
So lovely to see you all and meet you all.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll send you guys the recording as well, just if you guys want to, share it with your community as well.
All my
Thank
people
you.
are waiting for it. So I'm going to go bed
Thank
now,
you.
right? But I'll get the recording.
I'm going to
Thank
bed
you.
now.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
See
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thanks again, guys.